Let's talk random archaeology, and this is episode 2 with myself, Howard Williams, and my extra special guest or co-presenter.
Afnan Ezzeldin. Hello.
Hello again, and so thank you for joining me again for the second ramble through all things to do with archaeology degrees, because it's a really important subject. And being able to talk to a quite recently graduated former student who has gone through an archaeology degree, I think will help a lot of people listening, and hopefully they'll add their comments and give us some discussion. And we can see how this develops in a series of podcasts about all things to do with random archaeology. So Afnan, last time we talked about experience and the challenges of doing an archaeology degree or doing any degree, and this time I thought we could talk a little bit more about the content of archaeology degrees and some of your experiences, which I think are really quite distinctive, and everyone does a different archaeology degree. There's about 28 places or more that you can study archaeology in the UK. At Chester we have single honours archaeology, we have combined honours history and archaeology, or archaeology and history, depending on the weighting you take. And then we also have archaeology and forensic biology, or forensic biology and archaeology. Again, we give the option for a majoring or minoring routes within that if students wish. But I mean, what did you do for your degree? You were single honours, weren't you?
Yeah, I was a single honours. It was just archaeology. But yeah, I think it was kind of interesting because the archaeology degree in Chester isn't it's not a BSc, it's a BA, which is really nice because it does really focus on theory and rather than science, which I thought was quite nice. But I think that's why sometimes it's nice to have it in combination with maybe forensic biology or something like that if you are interested in a science. But yeah. Single honours archaeology.
All archaeology degrees have a bit of science. We use science, and some of my colleagues do special options in paleobotany or plant macrofossil analysis, and they also do environmental reconstruction based on that, and also human remains and so on. But other degrees are much heavier science routes, so you can take a BSc archaeology or BSc archaeological science. I know someone who got a BSc archaeological science.
Oh really? No way.
Yeah. I know.
How was that?
Well, it was good. I did a lot of I did a lot of human osteology, paleopathology. I didn't do the archaeomaterials. There's a lot of archaeological materials sciences at Sheffield, ceramics, metallurgy. I didn't do much of that, but I did do the sort of bony stuff, zooarchaeology. I did my animal bones with Professor Paul Halstead back in the day. So
that's so cool.
I mean, I did sort of, but everyone knows me as a hardcore archaeological scientist. Not, the fact is, you can do a degree even if you do a BA. You're still doing archaeological science, but as a embedded in, the art, the context of, So I mean, you would have probably dabbled in bits of it, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we had, like you mentioned, we had things like osteology and kind of, I was really interested in the paleobotany.
Yeah.
But that year, I remember, it wasn't available because the lecturer, they went on research leave, and I was so sad about it because I really, really wanted to do that in my third year. But yeah, it's actually really interesting. I think that I like that there's a combination of the two with archaeology. You can always go into theory or you can go into science, but it really is a mix and a match between both because your theory has to be, well, I guess you need the evidence, and the evidence is the science. So it really does come hand in hand. But yeah, I think for me, I remember with my osteology, I really wanted to do osteology, but there's only a few places, and I woke up late, so I didn't get a chance to be a part of that.
The whole of your degree.
Well, no, I mean, it was, we had to we had to kind of it was first come, first serve kind of situation.
Oh, okay, right. So when the option choices are out, yeah.
Okay.
Gosh, and everyone.
I woke up late.
Really. My word, that's a bit of a. I mean, I suppose, I mean, I think that's true of all degrees. Is if there's one module you want to do, you've got to be, you can't go to that place because of that one module, because the lecturer might be on research leave. By the time you get there, it might
Yeah.
have changed. And that's true of my degree as well. I can't remember what it was now, but this rings a bell with, I had an experience where I was going, I really want to do a module and it just wasn't available, or the combo of other modules I had to take that I wanted to do meant that I couldn't take it. I had to take either or, so, in other words,
Oh,
I suppose the point is that, yeah, you won't always necessarily do every module you want, depending on which
yeah.
term it's offered, what year it's offered, because they may be available every other year, or you have to give up something else you need to do. So, yeah,
Yeah.
that is a real, I mean, it's frustrating, but I think that's one of the things is, I mean, yeah, I missed out on a few modules I really wished I'd done, But then also there's the thing that other
Yeah.
people take them and go, oh, it's really great. It's really great. Oh, and you go, oh, damn, I wish I'd done that now. And then other people go, no, no, I really don't enjoy it. So, you end up, you don't know whether it's, people just hyping up their choices or not.
But I think like that's the thing about the dissertation though, like even if you haven't got the chance to kind of, dabble in it and you weren't able to do your choice, your dissertation is open and it's free and it's for you to do whatever you want. And even if you weren't able to get into that, kind of sector, you can always do a dissertation on it. You might be not advised not to, since you don't have the knowledge and you haven't studied it, but like, I mean, your dissertation is kind of like your oyster, really. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, because actually that's true. I've known students who've like, I've approved a topic, say, I don't know, on Viking burial or something. I just made that up, and I go, so you're taking my Vikings module, are you? No. Oh,
Yeah.
or, and you go, why? Oh, well, I'm combined on a student and, I wanted to take this other module, but I'll do this. Well, you can always sit in on a few lectures that are relevant, or I can give you materials. Or the other way around, you have students, going, so I'm taking a module on, say, in doing Viking burial. I said, well, why didn't you do the dissertation on this if you love it so much? Oh, I just like to do, I want to do Bronze Age stuff. Or, so you end up sort
Yeah.
of, you balance up as a student, don't you, what you want to dedicate as your dissertation, which may be a
Yes.
multi-period theme, or it might be a
Mm.
period specific or geographically focused study, and what you do, in terms of your taught modules. I mean, which taught modules, did you really enjoy best, do you think, in your 3 years as an
Oh.
undergraduate?
That's actually really tough because it's really sad because I can remember the ones that I absolutely despised and just couldn't deal with.
You mean the ones I taught?
Um,
Yeah, fine. I don't take it personally. It's all right.
you know, actually,
It's all right.
actually,
I
I
don't mind.
was all of your subjects that you taught me. So I had you for heritage, which I know that you were stepping in for.
Yeah.
I never took your medieval modules. Like
No,
I never took Vikings. I never took your module, so I don't actually know what you taught.
probably for the best.
um, which actually is really interesting because I think that even though we enjoy different subjects, I feel like um, you were very good at giving advice for me about the subjects that I wanted to choose for
Yeah.
like what I
Yeah.
enjoyed. But I actually I remember I studied was it I'm so bad at remembering the names of the modules, but we had a module like it was prehistoric, so it was like from the Paleolithic to I guess it would have been the Bronze Age because I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
Caroline teaching.
Yeah. So she comes in at the end of the Bronze Age into the Iron Agey stuff. Yeah. And
Mm,
yeah.
yeah, so that was a really really fun module. I learned a lot, and it's really exciting and it's really interesting, and I love the prehistoric. It's like my favorite thing ever. But I we also lab work. We did quite a bit of lab work, um, and I don't think it was in combination with a specific module. I think it was just kind of like random um, days where you'd be like, okay, well, today in this module, we're going to go to the lab and we're going to do something
Did
in
you do material
combination with your
culture
module.
analysis module?
Yeah, I
So that would have
did.
been. Oh, they have it. It's called the archaeology of material culture. So focusing on small finds. So you would have done lab stuff to do with individual artifact types, stonework and
Ah,
pottery and
yes.
flint and stuff.
Yeah, but that wasn't a choice. That was
No, that
that
was a
was
core
compulsory.
module. That was a
Yeah.
core. Yeah, that's the second year core or level 5 second year. Yeah,
Mm.
core
But
module.
that
Yeah.
was really interesting. The plant stuff was really cool. And I kind of like, I mean, at first I was like, oh, pottery, that's so boring. But it's actually really interesting.
It's amazing versatile material, and there's so many different periods of time where it's
Yeah.
made so many different textures, functions, art.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, at one level, I've never got into pottery, and I mean, one of my doctoral thesis was all about ceramic funerary vessels. So I dealt with pottery, but because the dead were in them, not because
Yeah.
of pottery itself. But it's a fascinating topic, and so obviously I'm into my Anglo-Saxon pottery because they were used in
Yeah.
the 5th, 6th century to stuff cremated people in. But people like Paul Blinkhorn are a specialist in Anglo-Saxon pottery. They've done some really fascinating work on the social, economic, and symbolic value of
Yeah.
pottery. So, but yeah, it's everyone has, I say, gravitates to some things and away from other things. I must say,
Mm.
modules I thought were going to be, I enjoyed all my modules is the official line, but some things, when you're doing them, sometimes you may in principle like the idea, and you still think, I definitely
Yeah.
need to know this, but you end up not enjoying bits. I don't know if that's just me, but
Well, I don't think so. I feel like when it comes to picking modules, the thing is, in every single module, even if you don't like it, you're learning something, and that's the
yeah.
whole point of uni. So it's like you're not supposed to enjoy everything. If you did, well, that would be pretty impressive, but you can't really enjoy everything. So yeah, I think it's fine to kind of go into it with a positive attitude. That's the whole point, and then kind of being like, oh, well, it's not as fun as I thought it was, but I mean, I would just go with it. You're learning, so I guess that's
Here's,
always a plus, right?
Here's a question for you, because I now I'm free
Mm.
of the burden of it involving me because you didn't do my options.
Yes.
Do you feel that how much of it rides on the style of the lecturer as opposed to the content? I mean,
Ooh.
if you don't get on, say, this is hypothetical, obviously, because I'm sure
Mm.
you enjoyed all the lectures, but if you don't get on with the style or the personality of a particular lecturer, does that ruin the module, or is it really is that only one factor, and you can still enjoy get lots out of the module even if you don't quite gel with the presenter?
Yeah,
Or I don't know, what do you feel about that?
that's a really interesting question, actually, because I think I have quite a few views on that. So for me, I remember we had, there was a module that I'll give a few examples of a few different modules. So um, there was a module, I didn't really enjoy it very much from the start, but then we got we had a guest lecturer come in, and in all honesty, I mean, the teaching style was very different to what we were used to, like as a class. And I guess it wasn't very enthusiastic and it wasn't very attention grabbing, but it felt more informative and it kind of felt like they knew what they were doing. So, in that sense, it didn't ruin the module, but it was kind of, oh, it's not so bad. I'm actually enjoying learning about it, but I'm not enjoying the module and I'm not
Mm,
enjoying the teaching style.
yeah.
Whereas, like, we had other modules that, for example, our GIS, we'll go with that one. So, if you like computers, it's actually not that bad. But I remember I had a few classmates who just couldn't mesh with the lecture. They would prefer to learn how to use GIS on paper or like, differently to kind of actively.
Within a computer room type scenario, you mean?
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Well,
And I think it didn't mesh well.
I mean, obviously students spend shed loads of time at a computer, but I've done a few workshops in preparation of the conference in computer labs. Each year we do a
Yes.
3rd year conference. We'll come back to that point, and they don't work. Students can't work in a computer lab, in my view.
They can't.
Archaeology students, and maybe computer science students can, but in a teaching space, they're crap because no one's got the motivation. No one wants to be. I don't know. It's just a weird dynamic. It's almost like having an old auntie in the room, and you don't know what to say. It's when the computer screen makes people freeze up. It's like, rather than going, ah, cool, I've got a computer screen,
Mm.
I can start doing stuff. They just all sit there going, oh, computers, I've heard of these. What do I do with? Of course, you know them.
You,
But if I wasn't there, they'd be fine. Or if the other people weren't there.
yeah.
Anyway, that's my feeling of the matter.
I don't know. I feel like computer rooms, it's not even that you kind of freeze up. I feel like you're back in primary school and
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
sitting on a computer and you're learning how to use Microsoft or something. And it's just kind of like there are so many distractions. Like I remember my classmates used to be on Pinterest and kind of like, you're like, well, of course, it's supposed to be in a lecture, but they've got like Pinterest kind of in the corner and then like GIS like just there. And it's like, we're not concentrating and we're just preoccupied because it's not grabbing our attention. And it's so easy to get distracted that way. So yeah, I wouldn't say computer rooms are maybe the best option, but it's such a necessary piece of work. Like you
Yeah,
need to be at a computer, so you need to be able to focus
yeah,
and you need to be able to concentrate. But like, I mean, students are students, right?
absolutely. I mean, you were blessed that you got through your degree before the COVID event, and
Yeah.
that led to all sorts of manner. We talked about that before, though, about the I think the students did great, but equally, I think some of them really struggled with that. Structuring their own time. What they're doing online, what they're doing
Yeah.
with the online learning. But I mean, what kind of methods and techniques did you get to do as a part of your degree? I mean, did you have? You've already mentioned some of the sort of specialist modules. I mean, did you do a lot of practical archaeology?
Um, I actually think that Chester was really quite hands-on, considering it wasn't a science, well, a BSc.
Yeah,
Um, so like we had lots of connections with material culture, or even like basically the lab was always available for us and the computers were always available for us. We could use them whenever we wanted. Um, it was a very free kind of like atmosphere. So we did learn a lot of like specialized things, and I do think it was a very hands-on degree. Um, Especially because in Chester specifically, we had lots of like extracurricular stuff
yeah.
going on.
I'll tell you,
Um,
I can actually throw an example at you that would make you funny.
okay.
That is, I actually a lot of local units, commercial units are looking for volunteers, and I
Mm.
one group got in touch and said, hey, could you advertise this dig? We're doing a 2-week dig in the summer.
Uh,
I said, well, it's a bit late now. Most of the students are wrapping up. And I sent out this message to loads of student groups, saying, opportunity, contact this guy. You're
mm,
getting a really good opportunity to work with a commercial archaeologist at a voluntary basis. And I rocked up onto the site to go and see the site, and it was a really important archaeological excavation. And I said to him, "Hi, nice to see you, mate. And I'm sorry, nobody replied to me. I'm really
mm.
embarrassed that none of my students got back to me." And as we were walking towards the site, and as we just got over the ridge, he goes, "Well, my trenches are all full of your students. They just didn't bother replying to me. They didn't think that
Yeah.
maybe it'd be a good idea to go, thanks, Howard. I'll be following that up with Ian, which is no problem. It's just that I thought, oh, this is really embarrassing. I contacted my
Mm.
80 students or 70 students across, and said, hey guys, go and volunteer. This is a really unique excavation. And I negatively thought, oh, no, never listen to me, never get back to me. I'll
Yeah.
never. But they were all there. So there was about 8 of them in the trench.
Yeah.
Oh, Howard,
Oh,
really enjoying the dig. They were learning a lot. I don't know why I use
that's
that
so
voice as my
nice.
generic student voice, but oh, Howard, they don't talk like that at all. But
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a really interesting point. Chester does have a lot of digs in the area, especially because we're so close to Wales.
yeah.
And I feel like a lot of the lecturers that are working in Chester have connections in digs, or they are part of a dig, or they are, involved in it in some way, or their friends are involved in it. So when what like having and being in Chester, you actually have so many opportunities. Like I think in my first year summer, I think it was maybe my first year summer, I was involved in 3 digs over
Right.
the summer. And that's crazy because like some of them were fine, some of them were not so great. But like the opportunities are there, and I think that's really the most important thing. Chester really does give you that. And I thought that was really cool about my degree. But I think it also taught me that I didn't want to be a dig a digger. So
No, that's true, and there's opportunities to volunteer in museums, work with heritage
yes,
organisations too.
yeah,
So there's lots of options. But yeah, I know as much as anything, these things confirm what you don't want to do, and what you
yeah,
don't want to specialise in. I mean, because at the end of the day, if you're gonna whatever you get out of your degree, there's going to be you're going to end up deciding, actually, what, I enjoyed doing that, but no more, thank you very much. Or this is the thing I want
yeah,
to take forward, because you can't do everything. I mean,
exactly.
you did do a dissertation though as part of your degree. So what was that on then? Of all, you like prehistory, you said. So what did you opt in the third year? Your specialist
Yes.
topic. Your
I thought it was really, really interesting to study drugs in prehistory. Um, I loved the prehistoric era and I loved everything about it. I liked everything before the Neolithic because farming destroyed the world. And
Not denying it. He says here, eating his
yeah.
toast. No, sorry, no, go on.
No, but you're totally right. Like, of course, in terms of society and community, you know, the Neolithic revolution was great and the farming revolution was awesome. And yeah, of course, we live in the life that we live in today because of it. But I really like the hunter-gatherer lifestyle.
Yeah, I mean, basically, most of the human past is pre-farming. You know, depending on how you define the origins of humanity and what, you know, I'm not going to get into that thing, but you know, we're looking at least 3 million years within that bracket. You know,
Yeah.
farming is only the last 10, 12, whatever. This is before. This is all chimps and rocks for me. It's all prehistory. It's all. But you know, my point is, I deal with much more historic periods. But you know, I think it's such an important thing. I mean, I actually, you know, I have a confession. I don't know if I told you this. Is that I actually was almost going to go into Paleolithic archaeology. I loved in the first year of
Oh
my
my
undergraduate
God.
degree Paleolithic archaeology. I went on digs with. And I really loved my Neanderthal and you know stuff. I
Really?
know, and I teach it occasionally. You know, when I have to, when I'm asked to,
What
and I try and
happened?
keep. Well, you know, I found that what happened. Well, I came to the realization that early historic periods, that the late Roman period and early medieval periods, are much more fascinating. But I have every respect.
Oh,
I'm in awe of some of the really innovative dating techniques, excavation techniques, the big questions of who we are. A lot of them are at
yeah.
the beginning, as well as you know. Well, archaeology stretches from those early origins right up to the present day. So some of the big
Yeah.
questions are about how we are in the 19th, 20th century, the archaeology of us, and you know, coming
Yeah.
up to the early 21st century. But also the big questions are at the beginning, aren't they? You know, so there's some
Yeah.
really exciting stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's actually, I'm really surprised. I'm shocked because I would have never expected that from you.
I'm full of surprises, Afnan.
But you know, that was what really, really interested me in the prehistoric. And it's that there's just so many years. I think like that theoretical side to prehistoric archaeology really, really intrigued me. And I liked the dating systems. Like it's incredible the science that went into like how they reconstructed environments, the plants that used to grow. The entire world was just different to
Yeah.
the world that we know. And I think that that was really interesting. Um, and I
But the
think
drugs,
that
how did the drugs fit into that?
I'm really interested in spirituality and religion and kind of that kind of concept. So I was very interested in animism and that kind of when I was thinking about what I wanted to do for my dissertation, I wanted to know how I could interlink the prehistoric with religion.
Mm.
And I came across quite a few papers, surprisingly, quite a few papers that spoke about, well, drugs and the connection of drugs to shamanism and kind of like um, that connection to the outer world and or the other world or the other realm, if you like. And I got really really interested because I personally think that drugs can really open your change your mind, change your concept, change your like outlook on life. And of course, if you have like psychedelics and stuff like that, it can really alter not only your mind but your vision and your atmosphere and how you feel things and how you can just your entire senses have just completely changed. And it really really clicked with me that maybe that was the entrance into, well, I thought I was onto something. I was like, that sounds really really cool. And I do think that drugs had an impact on spirituality and religion back in
Yeah.
the day. And I mean, when I was studying for my dissertation or doing research for my dissertation, I found that in a lot of spiritual sites, you do find a lot of evidence of drug use to get into, states, into certain states, so you can communicate with the other side or like whatever it was. And I thought that was really, really cool and really interesting how we view drugs nowadays as escapism or
Mm.
maybe like in a negative, it's almost a negative light. It's kind of like, oh, they can't deal with what they're dealing with, so we're just going to take drugs. It's kind of like drinking or smoking. It's addiction that maybe, or not even an addiction, like just something that you do to kind of de-stress and kind of, relax.
What's
And
that
I
phrase?
felt,
Recreational use.
oh yes,
It's
there
like
we
it's
go.
like it's like it's like what do you do for your recreation time? Well, I watch television, or I make a cup of tea, or I play Ludo or something, or I play
Mm,
chess. Or no, I take drugs as my recreation. The very concept of leisure time or recreational
mm,
time versus work time, or what do you do to
yeah,
contact the ancestors? Well, I go without food for 2 weeks and feel
yeah.
really, or I take certain substances. you know so yeah, I'm crudely characterizing, and
No,
I
no,
can I
no.
can I can hear more specialist archaeologists rolling their eyes as I say this. But I think there is an important, the way we characterize the individual and our bodies and our external,
Mm,
our parameters and our control of our bodies, whether it's through diet and drugs. It's seen as a aberration, like eating too
yeah,
much or eating too little. It's a failure of the body to be pure and whole. And there's all sorts of those
yeah,
kind of ideas which are very sort of modernist, sacred, secular ideas. But
yes,
yeah, when we're dealing with prehistoric societies, of course, we've got to consider very, very different potential understandings of the body, the human relationship with the
yeah.
supernatural, and how people convey and communicate. Yeah, that's really fascinating.
So that was my dissertation, and I thought it was really interesting. But you were saying that you were really interested in the prehistoric, but then it kind of shifted. So what was your dissertation, your
Yeah, so
undergraduate?
yeah, so my undergraduate dissertation. So I did a lot of science modules, but I also
Mm,
did funerary archaeology, a burial archaeology module, and I also did a
okay.
module on early medieval Britain and Ireland with my lecturer John Morland, Professor John Morland, as he is now, and he
Mm,
gave us a very really quite a radical different approach to the early Middle Ages, which in the mid 90s, his approach to early medieval archaeology was really different from stuff being taught at other universities. He was really heavily into post-processual approaches,
um,
particularly structural Marxism and neo-Marxist approaches to power and structure and ideology in society. And so he did this quite a radical undergraduate module that was really
yeah,
agenda. He had an agenda. We're going to kick the crap out of the early Middle Ages and think about it in new ways. And it's really, so I laugh. I do lots of belly laughs online when I see people going, we need to rethink the early Middle Ages. I said, did that in the early 90s as an undergraduate, sunshine. Wake up, grow up, and catch up. But anyway, but because I had this really great module from John, that sort of inspired me to think, early Middle Ages was a period I
yeah.
could go into. And so that inspired, and I also had this
Cool.
module from Mike Parker Pearson on burial archaeology. And so I wanted to do a dissertation that was a bit on early medieval burial archaeology. So I did early Anglo-Saxon burials, and I did it on something. I don't think many people know I did this, but I did I did for my undergraduate dissertation. I did on early Anglo-Saxon deviant burials, a topic which
Oh,
later became really famous with the work of Andrew Reynolds, Sarah Semple, new sites being discovered. But at the time, looking at sort of aberrant burials on their front, prone burials, decapitated burials, and subsequently I've supervised undergraduate dissertations on this,
yeah.
myself. But I did this. I tried to do this study looking at the Upper Thames region and Wessex, looking at deviant burial practice, and it
That's
was
cool.
well, the topic was cool. My dissertation was a pile of poo. It was rubbish.
What?
Um, uh,
Why?
because I ran out of time. I had too many clever
Mm,
ideas, and I didn't know how to knuckle down and write it in a way. And
yeah.
I think the comment that stays with me now is I got a good mark for it, but a good ideas poorly executed, I think was the point.
Yeah.
And and I remember the phrase "annoyingly opaque," which I think is a label will probably go on my gravestone. Uh, Professor of archaeology, quote,
Oh my god.
"annoyingly opaque." But I understood why he that because I was trying to think. I was trying to be too clever. I just read John
Mm,
Barrett's work on fragments from antiquity, and I've been reading Shanks and Tilly, and I tried to be clever, But that's good to be
yeah.
clever, but you've got to
Of
back it up.
course.
And I hadn't
Yeah.
fully interrogated my data set. And so I had some clever anecdotes and some good concepts, but I hadn't really done a systematic study. So I was a bit ashamed of that mark. I got a good degree result overall, but that wasn't my moment of glory. And so it
Yeah.
made me force me to think at master's level I've really got to
Yeah.
nail the dissertation. So early Anglo-Saxon deviant burials, but I wouldn't. No one. Hopefully, no one can find it online because I don't. It was so shite. I don't think that anyone will. But I'm still proud of some of the ideas I was playing with. But I think
Yeah.
it was at undergraduate. I mean, I sometimes see undergraduate dissertations go, wow, that's publishable with work, and mine was not publishable.
Well,
Although I have seen people come up with the same ideas subsequently. I went, yeah, I agree with you because I had that idea, you know, and
yeah. Well, that's actually really interesting because I think like in especially in your undergraduate, you like I said, your dissertation is like your big piece of research and it's
yeah,
going to be like the best piece that you've ever written and you want to make the most of it. But sometimes I think because we're still young and we don't really know how to research properly
no,
and it's difficult for us. So, like, as a lecturer and as someone who's done their dissertation and as someone who's done their master's and their PhD and literally everything and written books and literally anything that any researching archaeologist would ever wish to be, what advice would you give an undergraduate just off the bat? Like, kind of, what would advice would you give
well,
yourself?
all I would say is, and this is a problem, I can't be. I found that I could do an essay, I could do a good solid essay, but there's a massive jump to a bigger piece of work, a
Yeah,
project or a dissertation, and I see students struggle with that year on year. So I try to assure them that the more you, and I still struggle with this. Some pieces of work I can do in a day or two, and other things that are smaller, I freeze on them because I build them up in my mind. And that I think is the
yeah,
problem with a dissertation. I think I struggle with is it became I knew it was important, and because I knew it was important, even though really it's a couple of essays stuck together or 3 or 4 essays length, some more work, but
yeah,
in my mind it became such a beast, such a
yeah,
burden, such a mountain to climb that I just froze. I just kept looking at the mountain and just going, oh, that's really high. Yeah, I didn't, and so for me, I
yeah,
think part of my problem was psychological, and I still struggle
mm,
with this problem that I can do some pieces of work really fast when I don't
mm,
have. I'm not invested in them. I know I have to. I want to do them, but but if I
yeah,
really, really love it or really want to do it well, it becomes just ever more
yeah,
increasingly difficult to do. And so I always try to assure students that this is achievable, but you've got to
mm.
plan, you've got to read, you've got to not leave it to the last minute, and you
You
can't
have to
wing it.
start
You can't
early.
wing a
Yeah,
dissertation like an essay.
no,
Some people can, and I honestly, I didn't mean to wing it. I wasn't being lazy, but I just froze. And I think I was working on it, but the more work I put in, the further away the end seemed to be.
yeah,
So I think it's a psychological more than any other piece of undergraduate work. It's the thing that can you've got to sort of lock horns with it. You've got to stare it in the eye. You've got to you've got to kind of own it, otherwise
yeah,
it owns you, or other cliches like that. And I felt I was that was the advice to avoid is don't make it bigger than it is. Don't be intimidated by the dissertation. Take it step
mm,
by step. Get advice when you need it. We're there to support you. You get a supervisor.
yeah,
You approach us when you need. We will help, but only if you ask for it, because we can't
yeah,
know unless you approach us. And I'm afraid what I get again and again each year is some students who ask for a lot of help and get it, and some students that needed the help never ask. And so you
yeah,
can't help them. And they'll turn around and say, sometimes, most of the time they understand it, but sometimes they turn around and go, well, it's not because I would have done better if you'd helped. And I said, well, how was I supposed to? Well, you never hear this directly. You
yeah,
sometimes hear it indirectly. Of course, I was available to help. You just never emailed me and never turned up at my office. How can I know? So I think the problem
yeah,
is a lot of students just put heads in sand, and
yeah,
but still, there's some great dissertations we have each year where students have really
of
thought of a
course.
good idea, go, okay, that's a good idea, but how about do it this way rather than this way? We give them the advice, we give them the support, and they can deliver it. But I must admit, I was one of the ones for whom I feel I didn't fail my dissertation, but I just felt I missed the opportunity, to make the most of it. But then
Yeah.
again, I didn't submit late, and I knew people in my year who were literal, eggheads, proper eggheads. Now, unlike me, I'm sort of a fly by night, sort of I shouldn't really be here type professor, but real eggheads. But they were so precious about their work, they never delivered it, they never presented it. They were days late, and their mark
Why?
stuff. And then, these people, these individuals just never miss the deadline. Don't give yourself the late work penalty. It's crazy. You're literally urinating
It's not
away
worth it.
marks. No, just
Yeah.
get it in, whatever state it's in, even if it makes you cringe, even if you have to have your eyes shut as you press the button to submit it, or as it used to be in the day, take a physical copy to the department office. You know,
Mm,
get it in, get it out of the way, move on. Never
yeah.
never apologize, never explain, never look back, as they say. You know, game on,
Just take it
move
and
on.
go.
You know, it wasn't me anyway. I never liked it anyway. You know,
Mm,
it's like you know, my point is, it's a relationship with yourself, your work, and sometimes it can go sour, and you've just got to sort of
definitely.
get through it, and sort of, you know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I liked your little analogy about the mountain because I think once you start doing your dissertation, you don't, when you start doing the research and you start actually getting into it, you can't see the top. You can't see the finish line. And you're like, man, I've diverted way too far. But actually, it's just when you get closer to the mountain, you can't see the top, can you? You have to climb up there.
That's the
So,
that's the problem. And when you look back, you realize, my God, this was so easy. Why didn't I see the
mm,
distance and the structure? You know, and you almost forget immediately how hard it was, each individual section. You see the vista,
yeah,
and you think, well, this was so hard, and yet look at the beautiful views I have, and look at the you know, the
yeah,
journey looks so easy from here now. And you, obviously you got to, you know, if you want to use that analogy, one of those dangerous bits is getting back down a mountain, as we know. But you know,
yeah,
let's not take that any further. Let's you
yeah,
know, but in terms of, yeah, and you look at some of the projects I'm still doing now. I think, oh, the months and months of agonized over this, and now I've written it. I could have done that much quicker. But you know, the
yeah,
beauty of hindsight, you know, it's so easy to
right. Oh
be
my God.
hard on yourself and hard on, and and as I said before in our last conversation, everyone else looks like they're having an easy time while you're
Yes.
struggling, because everyone's in the same, not in the same boat, but in all different boats of their manufacturers' dissertation projects, desperately
Yeah.
trying to make them work. And I must say, there are dissertations like mine that each year I see where this bit is bollocks, but you know, they did a damn good literature review and critique of past work, or they didn't really cover all of it. They didn't ask a very clever question, but my word, did they pull together some new data and
Oh,
new
that's
evidence. And
nice.
you know, so you're always rewarding. Different dissertations do different jobs, and
Mm,
some they can't be brilliant in every regard. You know, maybe
yeah.
the maps are all rubbish, but the actual interpretation of the spatial data is great. You know, so
Yeah.
you're looking to mark as a lecturer and reward, not just pick holes, and you're trying to
Yeah.
look for the things a student has achieved, you know, because frankly, even if they are a bit unhappy with what they achieved, maybe if they found no results, maybe the point was they interrogated a topic and they had a negative result, that there's no pattern or there's no clear,
Yeah.
convincing, but that is still a result. I always assure
Yeah.
students of that. If you don't find a clear categorical pattern, that means there's no pattern there that we have. And that is a positive outcome, you know,
Definitely.
because if people are claiming, if X author is arguing there's clearly a pattern for this and you don't find it in your data set, that is a good result, you know, that you've
Yeah.
challenges previous work. So I always assure students that don't feel you always have to have, my study found this and it debunked the myth of this and challenged the views, or you know, confirmed a thesis. You know, it can be a bit wishy-washy and still be a really solid piece of work. You know, we didn't find many new
Mm,
examples of this, and that's really revealing of maybe we don't understand the topic as much as people have claimed. So you know,
yeah.
there's always an angle a student can take to show their contribution, you know, of their dissertation project, building on the taught modules, you know, to broader learning. And it's a
Yeah.
stepping stone. If you want to go on to do a master's in the same subject or
Mm,
another subject, having that dissertation under your belt, learning the lessons, making the mistakes, it's all part of the
yeah.
journey, to use a cliche. it's a, you know,
Yeah.
I'm full of
That's
cliches.
true.
Mountains and journeys today is the cliches. The Professor Howard
The
Williams
best
Cliche
kinds.
Festival.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think I agree with everything you've said, and I really do wish that I had tried a little harder because I think, yeah, when you're a young archaeologist, you don't realize your potential, and you don't want to do exactly what you just said, which is like, oh, but I didn't find any results, which means my dissertation's crap. But actually, it's not. But you think it is because, well, you're just a little young archaeologist that's like making their way in the archaeological world. But yeah, there you go. It's very interesting.
So I mean, I think if I'd left and stopped being an archaeologist, an undergraduate degree, and gone to work at Lloyd's Bank or
Mm.
done a PG, a BEd, whatever, PG cert, sorry, for in education or something, and become a teacher and ruin children's lives by trying to teach them at an earlier age, rather than just ruining students' lives and teaching them at university. I would have looked back on my 3 years as an undergraduate degree and I said I really enjoyed it. I don't think
Mm.
as a person, I was as mature as some of my current students are. I was
Yeah.
nervous, retiring, unsociable individuals. But in terms of a subject, I think I grasped it to a degree, but to a degree, but to an extent. But I think maybe it would have been best left, because I don't think my undergraduate degree, though I got a good mark, I don't think
Yeah.
it marked me out as a new, an archaeologist. I think I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I would have been proud of those 3 years, but frankly, that's that. I've got an interest for life. I've got an enthusiasm for life, but I've put it aside and I'll go and do something else. But
Yeah.
I ended up doing a master's, and that's what we're going to talk about maybe in future
Yeah.
podcasts, because I want to talk to you, if I may, next time about you know um, the student conference that we collaborated on in your 3rd year, and then the book
Absolutely. Yeah.
that we did stemming from that. But also I want to talk to you about your experience of doing a master's degree, because I think people will be very interested in that jump that some people make, not everyone, from doing an undergraduate degree to a master's degree.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm more than happy to talk about it, especially because I think when I was doing my MA, I literally just finished my undergraduate, so I
Yeah.
think maybe I had a different experience to others who kind of went out in the world and then came back
Yeah, because in your year
to
there
do
were a
it.
few people who did that, didn't they? Who literally came
Yeah,
back. Yeah, but if we can wrap this up for now, thanks very much, Afnan,
yeah,
for a second. Really, really, I've enjoyed the conversation anyway, even if no one else has.
yeah. Me too.
But I think it's just giving people a flavour of that. It's not all plain sailing. There's always things that don't
Mm,
quite work as planned, but we live to tell another tale, to live another day, to
yes,
to s- to, to,
definitely.
to look back and with fondness and regret at our undergraduate days, and from drug use to
Yes,
deviant burials, we all do different fun
yes,
things.
of course. Oh my God.
Thanks very much, Hafnan, and we'll be back for more random
Yes, indeed we
archaeology.
will. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to Howard Williams on YouTube. In addition, consider following the ArchaeoDeath WordPress blog at howardwilliamsblog.wordpress.com.